All right, folks. Thing number two, that is going to be creating great content. And the thing with great content in 2023, 2024 is that you have to continuously make it better because this is not 2012, 2011 where YouTube is just taken off. You can pretty much throw anything up there and it's going to get watch time and a lot of views. Not the case anymore simply because there's a ton of competition. So we're going to go through some strategic ways on how to level up your content, especially if you're a video podcaster doing interviews. I'm going to give you some really good tips on how to improve them. All right. So what if my market is super competitive like mine and probably yours too? And how do you stand out? So for me, a couple things have helped. So number one is the serving a sub niche, which we talked about in the last video. If you didn't watch that video, go back and watch it, around serving a sub niche, which is a niche within a niche. Kind of weird and kind of meta, but you'll get it once you watch the video. The second thing is to focus on what I can control. And there's 4 things on YouTube or video podcasting that I can control. And that is C, or the acronym is CTTT, which stands for your content, your titles, your thumbnails, and your timing. And we'll get into all of this in a second here. All right. So let's just kind of peel back the layers on all of these. How do we actually tactically get good at each of these? So content, timing, or thumbnails, titles, timing. How to get good at all of it? So I'll start with content. And for me, this is like probably the most important one. There's AI and tools and other things for titles, thumbnails, and timing. I think those are actually a little bit easier to get good at. But for content, I think it's a little bit harder personally. And when I say content, I mean like the actual video, the idea, those kind of things. All right. So 3 things I think, if you're not doing these things, these will instantly improve your videos in your podcast episodes. Number 1 is to deliver on the click. What I mean by that is in the first 5 seconds, are you going to address what the person clicked on? You see, most people will click on videos that are engaging from a title and thumbnail perspective, right? So if I'm a listener on or a viewer on YouTube and I'm looking at your podcast episodes, I'm going to click based on what the thumbnail sells me and what the title sells me on. And if you don't address those things in the first few seconds, like I'm going to show you a video here that does that well, it's going to be hard to retain a listener, and you're going to see your view time drop off. All right, so let me actually hop out of this really quick, and I'm going to go to a video right here. So this is a video. If you look here, the thumbnail says 1.4 million in 1 year. It's a guy pointing to the YouTube channel, YouTube logo, and it says how he made 1 million with a small channel with Thomas Frank. So this is a big YouTuber guy as well. So this is 0.00 in the video, as you guys can see here. We're gonna play it. Making so much more money on this small channel than we've ever made on the big 2 million subscriber channel. Okay, it's 5 seconds in, and he's already talked about making more money on a small channel versus a larger channel. I don't think you guys can see that, or maybe not hear it because I'm through my microphone. But if you click on this little link here, this first link, this is the one I would highly recommend just replaying. Literally just going from 0.0 to 0.5. It's just 5 seconds of the video and just replaying it. And then look how it marries with the thumbnail, with the title, and how if you're somebody who's looking for advice on this, if you go and click on this, within 5 seconds, they've already satisfied your curiosity. Doesn't mean they explain how to, but it's sold you on, hey, I should stick on this because they've made it kind of a safe place. They've said, hey, you're in the right place. We didn't just bait and switch you. This isn't just some long, boring interview. We're actually going to address why you're here in the first 5 seconds. They did that by just using this little clip at the front. And there's other ways to do this. I've got another example here as well. This is darn it. So I'll switch out. So this video right here is a video from one of our clients. And this is where you can actually see a little bit of a different spin on how to address or how to increase retention time by delivering on the click. So it's same thing here. In this example, the video, the title, the thumbnail, and the first 5 seconds all marry together, and it delivers on the click. It tells the person or addresses why they're here and kind of reinforces that they're in the right place. All right, so that's the first one, deliver on the click within the first 5 seconds. Next one is Let's see if my clicker can work here. Come on, clicker. There we go. Didn't want to go for me for a second. Next one is practicing getting to the gold faster. So this is something, if you've been interviewing for a long time, this is going to be hard to break, because essentially what you have to do is remove all of the fluff, all of the getting to know you, all of the worthless time you spend on stories. Not to say stories are worthless, but the ones where if you just ask a guest without knowing that they have an interesting story, you're setting yourself up for failure, because someone will say, if I'm an interviewer, I'm saying, so tell us about yourself. And I've done this a million times before too. So I'm trying to remove this from myself too. But the good interviewers, the ones that are better than me, will do this. So if you listen to this interview right here, now you want to go forward. If you click on this interview right here, the link will be right there. It'll show you within the first probably 10, 15 seconds, they're already getting into the interview. All right. So this is something that needs to be practiced. And another tip here that I didn't mark down was, you probably want to let the interviewee know, like, hey, I'm going to save or skip a bunch of time getting to know you in the background. We'll maybe cover that. We may cover that in the intro, or I'll put it in the description. But my viewers just want to get to it. They want to hear the good stuff. So we're just going to jump in. And this is going to increase your listen time on this video. It's going to help people see you as an expert faster. So just want to give you a heads up. That way they're not thrown off guard if you don't ask them like anything about their background or how they got there or blah, 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 because they're used to doing that, because every other podcast interviewer does that. They say, hey, how'd you get here? Or tell me about your background. Tell me about your upbringing. Tell me about how you started. Avoid those questions unless you know they have a crazy story. And then if you do have that crazy story, you want to tee it up. But for most people, it's going to be just, so how do we get better at XYZ? As you can see here with this title, it's how the 1% build wealth. Copy these millionaire habits, Alex Hormozi. So the first question actually dives into that, right? So, and that's within the first 10, 15 seconds. So that's one of the things there. Practice getting to the gold faster. Remove the, so tell us about yourself questions, especially if you don't know the person's story, or you don't have reason to believe that this person has a crazy story that is worth listening to. Remove that question. Number 3, make each interview question stand on its own. All right. Meaning you want to ask questions that could be like basically episodes on their own. Okay. If no one doesn't need to care about the person, they don't need to know who they are, and the person's content's good enough, then you should be able to put that episode or that question, maybe it's a 5, 10, 15 minute part, put that question at a standalone piece. So as an example here, if you see Stephen Bartlett here, you see Stephen Bartlett there, you see Stephen Bartlett there. Why is that? Because that was 3 pieces of content made by one interview. So the original interview is right here. It's 2 hours and like 8 minutes. If you look here, you got 11 minutes, 11 seconds, and then you've got 10 minutes and 48 seconds. The reason why, and if you look at the view count, it's tripled, or it's doubled, sorry. The reason why is because they simply took a question that was interesting and turned it into this short video, and then they turned it into this short video with a different thumbnail. They didn't even add an intro. If you click on these, it just gets right into the question. It's like, so Stephen, blah, 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 blah. What it's done, if you look at the views, so this original interview got 300,000 views. This one's got 115, and this one's got about 203. So they've basically doubled their views by just taking the really good questions that this guy asked, Chris Williamson, and turning it into standalone pieces. No custom introduction needed, no fancy stuff needed, literally just having an editor do this. Now, the secret here is that Chris Williamson asked really good questions. So one of the things we started practicing doing, and I did this a couple weeks ago, we actually were able to create 7 pieces of content from one 37-minute interview, and we're going to roll that out. So that's basically created almost 2 months of content for me. Now, the cool part about this is that it takes no extra work, and all you really need to do, like all I did, was sit down maybe 30 minutes before the interview and think about what are the 4 or 5 really hard-hitting questions that would basically be titles for those interviews, for those videos. So think of your questions as a title. So one of the questions I asked were, what were the 3 biggest red flags that are mistakes that brands make when they're trying to sponsor a podcaster, right? So that is going to be the title of this episode, and I'm going to have basically like a thumbnail. It's going to have red flags, or like a big red X in front of it. That's going to say like avoid these mistakes and save tons of money or something like that. And essentially, that's going to be my videos. So that takes a little bit of planning, probably not too much if you're already pretty good at interviewing. Take some time, think about the questions, and not just like really deep philosophical questions. Typically, you want to stick to tactical type of questions because those are going to get more clicks. All right, just how it is. So that's the content. The next thing we'll jump into here is the titles. So the way I think of it sequentially when it comes to content is, especially on YouTube, we're talking mostly YouTube here, is the thumbnail is supposed to get the person to stop the scroll. The title is supposed to reinforce what the thumbnail said and give a little bit more context. All right. So there's three ways I look at doing this. I look at creating titles. Number one, I'll go and look at like what's trending. So if we hop out of here again, I'll go to, this is my YouTube feed. So I'll go to, I'll just look at like what's trending and like what look at some titles that I really like, right? I like this thumbnail, how I get clients with no proof. It's very clear. It's very contrarian. And then the title is 6 ways to create proof and get more clients, even if you have none. Love that. So I'm just sometimes looking through here and looking at like, you know, a lot of these are question-based titles or they're making very bold statements, right? I lost 90% of my YouTube channel. So like maybe there's something I can think of how I can position this as like a shocking or a damaging omission almost. So I'll look through here sometimes and I'll just figure out like what's working and what do I want to maybe model. The second thing I'll use, or second tools I'll use, are tools like vidIQ. Very good. They've got an AI kind of player that you can actually use to create titles. Same thing with ChatGPT. A lot of times I'll throw an idea in there and say, give me 10. The script I'll use is this. It's give me 10 different versions of this title, and then pretend like you're a famous direct response copywriter trained by Gary Halpert. Gary Halpert, for those who don't know, is a famous direct response copywriter way back in the 1900s, and the guy made a ton of money. Very, very smart. He's trained some of the best copywriters in the world. But pick whoever you want to model. Maybe it's Frank Kern. Maybe it's Dan Kennedy. Doesn't matter, but you want to kind of give the prompt those kind of ideas so that they know what you're looking for. And that's not even the best prompt, but that's the one I always go to. And then there's CoSchedule AI tool. It'll create some ideas for you as well based on the keywords that you type in. So those are other tools you can use for titles. And then the last one, if you want to do more of a, I guess, let's just say you have an idea for an episode and you haven't created the video yet. Sometimes Morning Fame, and I'll go through a little tutorial right here. We will log in. Let's go home. Let's make sure I have the right login. All right, let's hop in here and you guys can kind of see how this works. So there's two things to this. It'll give you a keyword. You can do keyword research, or you can do an analytics report, and this will tell you like what is growing your channel faster, which videos are working, which are not. All right, I'm going to go on the keyword research side. So there's two ways to use this. You can either have a video that inspired you, or if you have a video topic. So let's just say I want to make a video on podcast monetization. Let's just go podcast money because it's more basic language. All right, so it'll give you a kind of like a score based on the like how hard it's going to be to rank. The F's indicate to me that this is going to be a very hard, based on my YouTube channel, which is a small YouTube channel. It's going to be hard to rank because the other channels talking about this are way bigger. So it'll give me all of these different ideas, give me uncommon keywords I could possibly use, which are great. It'll also give me the top ranking videos, which is really, really good, right? So this is more, it seems like it's more pulling in more so like stuff around Jeff Bezos. So not specific like to podcast money making. So I can go back, I can revamp this like make money podcast. Let's see if that can help. Podcast monetization. So again, it gives me way more uncommon keywords that are great choices for smaller channels like mine. So I could usually use this as a keyword or an idea to make a video or make an episode. All right. And it gives you uncommon hashtags, gives you really good videos to look at that see what's working and see what's not. right? So this is one of the ones that I use when I'm not sure on the idea and I want more research behind it, because it pulls in all of the videos for me and gives me keywords I can use. So a really good tool there. It's super cheap. So that's the other one there. That's as far as titles go. I'll look for motivation. I'll use some specific tools if I have the idea already, or if I need an idea, I will use Morning Fame, and that will pull in a lot of great data that I can use to flesh out my idea more and then make it unique based on what's already out there. All right. So third thing, thumbnails. Again, as I mentioned before, so thumbnails are designed for me. My goal is to get somebody to actually stop the scroll. They may click based on just a thumbnail, but for me, I use the title for that. The thumbnail is really to get them to stop the scroll. And there's two main ways I like to think about making thumbnails. The first one, and if you're for audio podcasts, this is not really applicable. The main thing you're going to use on the audio side for a podcast is your title. So your titles have to be very, very benefit driven. And like we talked about in the past, it needs to elaborate on some kind of like big idea, right? And that's where you're going to use those tools to kind of flesh that out. But if we're doing YouTube, if you're thinking about what should my thumbnails look like, two things to look, or two pieces of advice. Number one is use familiar characters. So if I go to, I think someone who does this really well is Erica. What's her name? So let's get out of here really quick. Here we go. Okay, so this is Erica Kohlberg. You guys may know her as Erica Taught Me, because that's kind of how I remembered her. But if we go to her videos, especially in the beginning, she's talked about this in the past, I think in some presentations that I've learned, but using familiar faces. So if you see here Tesla, if you see here Webull, YouTube, she pulls in different logos. And even if I go even further, especially on her shorts. So if we scroll down here, you'll see like different brands. So Southwest, you'll see JetBlue, Kendra Scott, Alaska Airlines, Apple. So she's using familiar faces to get people to click, because, and the titles are also really good too. But if you're just scrolling and you see this and you have AT&T or you've bought from Levi's, you're automatically drawn to that because of the familiarity. All right. So that's one really good thing that I think she does that we can learn from. The second one is going to be on, let me jump back to my slide here. The second one is going to be on facial emotion. So this is Chris Williams' YouTube channel. I pull a lot of stuff from him because his team does a really good job. But look at Kobe's face. Kobe looks like he's going to kill somebody. He's got that Mamba face on where he just went into kill mode. And this is emotion, and then the title would generally reinforce that. But think about the emotion you want to kind of elicit on your podcasts or on your videos. If it's anger, curiosity, fear, then your facial expression or whoever's face is on there, if there is a face, should evoke that. It should be that. So if it's a happy video, then you should have a person smiling on there. You should be super pumped if you take a screenshot or take a selfie for that thumbnail. All right, so familiar characters, you could, like, for example, Kobe, like they use here. Everybody knows Kobe. They may not know Alex Hormozi, but they're going to probably go click because they know Kobe and he's got that killer mentality. All right. And even though the funny thing is they didn't even mention Kobe at all in this video. It's just about Alex Hormozi talking about, having a really killer mentality when it comes to work. So it doesn't have to be in the video per se. It can just be something that is explaining what you're going to talk about in the video. All right. So some of the things that we did with our clients is we looked at all their click-through data, and I'll show you how to get to this in a second. But if you look here, what's really working? So look at this one here on the left. Age bias is real. If you look at her face, she's shocked and disgusted. And it says that the title goes a little bit deeper. It says aging in tech, older employees are being driven out. So very fear-based, oh my God, if I'm an older tech employee, I'm pretty scared at this right now. Another one here, move my face, is exotic car hack, profit or loss. Just sold my first exotic car hack deal breakdown. So really good video that just kind of pokes at did I make money? Did I lose money? It has that curiosity element because you want to know what he did and how much money he made or lost. All right. So look at some of the lower performing ones here. this one here, how to burn belly fat quickly. I think this is probably just overplayed. Like people are it's a very saturated market in health and wellness, especially when it comes in terms of belly fat. So even though this creator had a good looking thumbnail, had like the good expression on this face, I think here the overall idea probably was just too basic, right? So probably something we learned, this is why we track all this data, is because we want to improve it. So you can see here 5.7%, not the best. And it's my thought as to why that is probably because burn belly fat quickly is something that's played out. Like it's very, very, very common. All right. So this is good. Like you can have somebody take your thumbnails and like line them up like this and put the click-through rate on the bottom like we did here, and then you can study them. So our team does this when we train our internal team. We have our internal trainings. We use this kind of data to see how can we make the stuff better for every client as we move forward. All right. So the third or last T here is timing. So timing really comes around to looking at like what's in the media right now, what is trending. For example, as of recording this, it's Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's somewhat relationship. I don't know what it is, what to call it, but that's a trending topic. If you could take Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift and tie it back to your content, to what you talk about, for me, it'd be like podcast monetization. That is something that's going to get you more clicks and drive more people to your stuff because you're targeting a wider audience now when you're bringing in this idea. However, you're still pulling it back to what you typically talk about, right? So you're able to target or have a wider net, which means if I put Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, it's going to bring in more people, but then it's also going to, if what you want to do, you don't want to just have an episode about them. If you talk about podcast monetization, you're going to want to tie it back to your topic. Okay. So you can talk about whatever it is you know what to talk about related to the Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift relationship. So that's essentially timing. If I was doing a video on this, I'd want to drop it as soon as possible before this becomes old news and everyone's done it. Okay. It's one of these things that it's going to put a shelf life on your content because a year from now, most people are not going to care and click that much. However, in the short term, it can bring you a lot of viewers and a lot of clicks. So that's timing in a nutshell. All right. So how do you actually see if your stuff is good? Like, how do you actually measure this? So we'll go through each of these, and I'll show you the back end of my YouTube, and I'll focus this training on YouTube. I will note, last thing here is consumption rate. So we're going to go through click through. We'll go through watch time, but consumption rate, that's on Apple Podcasts. I'll save that. If you have a question on Apple Podcasts and logging in, just let me know. But essentially, consumption rate is going to be the same thing as watch time, except watch time is on YouTube. Consumption rate is going to be for measuring all of your downloads and listeners on Apple's platforms. Okay. So keep that in mind, but they're measuring the same thing. They're measuring how long someone is sticking to the video. All right. So let's go through click-through rate. That is going to be really measuring how good your thumbnails and your titles are. So if your thumbnails and titles are good, your goal, or you're generally going to be able to achieve over 10% click-through rate. What it's measuring is it's saying out of all the people who saw this video, all the people that YouTube showed this video to, how many people actually clicked on the video and went to watch it? All right. The average is 5 to 9%, or sometimes it can be abysmally lower. We've seen it be lower in the past, but you want to shoot for an average of 5 to 9% per video. And then obviously above 10% is good. So if you're wondering how to actually find this, I'm going to show you right now. So we'll go to my YouTube channel. I'm going to show you guys, going to go to YouTube Studio. Let me switch so you guys can actually see. All right. Okay. So there we go. This is my YouTube Studio. All right. So as far as, if you don't know how to find this, go here, if you're on your channel, you're going to go to YouTube Studio. All right. And then we're going to go to analytics. We're going to go to advanced mode. And then on your drop down here, you're going to see impressions click-through rate, and you're going to be able to see all of your videos, right? So what we're looking at is this number right here. And you're actually able to sort through and see, okay, which which one has the best thumbnail and which one is getting the best click-through rate, right? So this will give you an idea of A, how good your thumbnails are, and B, how good your titles are. Because people see both and they use both to really measure or see if they're going to click on a video, it's hard to tell which one. There are other places you can just kind of analyze your YouTube thumbnail. For example, if you have a team, you can, or a YouTube or like an audience on Instagram or Facebook, you can just drop or share both thumbnails and see which one. Ask people, hey, which one would you click on more? And people will give you their feedback. And just by looking at that data like quickly, you can see, okay, I'm probably going to go with this one because it's getting more thumbs up or getting more yeses to it, right? So different ways you can test your thumbnail and your title could be to measure it on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook before posting the video. The second way to do this, if I wanted to like say, hey, I wanted to split test, a different thumbnail with this one, even though it's got a really high click-through rate at 29%. I could basically release the same video or three of the same video with different thumbnails, and just after a day, take it down and based on the data of which one's getting the most clicks, right? So you can do that. You can release the same video 3 times with just 3 different thumbnails or 3 different titles, whichever one you want to test, and that'll give you an idea of how to, which one's better. But if you're not doing that, like most people, you can just come in here and look at your impressions to click-through rate, and that'll give you an idea of what's working, right? So what I'd want to do if let's see, I think there's a way I can sort. I can filter by content type, and I can go video only and apply. There we go. And now it's going to tell me only my videos. So only my long form videos, not shorts. And it'll give me a better idea of like what's working. So you can see most of my stuff is in that 5 to 7% range or even lower, right? So I've got some other ones here that are just not doing anything. So one thing I'd want to do is have my editor or designer let's go through and change those thumbnails and see if we can improve those. All right, so that's how you look at click-through rate, and that's how you are able to measure it. Now let's jump back. I'm going to jump back here to the training. So the next one is watch time. Watch time is tricky, but generally you're going to want to shoot for 30 to 50% of the video watched. The goal obviously is going to be to get above 50%, but if you're in that 30 to 50% range, that is really good. That tells you that people are enjoying your content. And this is going to vary a lot based on the length of your video. So if your videos are like an hour plus long, you're probably going to expect anywhere from like 15 to 30% watched. Whereas if you're doing 10-minute videos, the goal ideally would be to get to 30 to 50% and ideally above 50% if they're shorter, right? So it just depends on how long the episodes are. Longer is going to be less watch time. Just keep that in mind. So to jump back to my YouTube studio, if you guys don't know how to find that, and I think it's a really good metric to keep an eye on, what you're going to do, we're going to come back here, and I'm just going to get out of this altogether. So go back to the main studio, right? And then we're going to go to analytics. Actually, no, we're going to go to dashboard, and then we'll come over here to analytics where I was, and then I'm going to go to advanced mode. And then we're going to you can look at watch time, but then there's also a way, if you hit this little plus button, we can look at average view duration. All right. So it's going to give me a number, and it's also going to give you, here we go. Yeah, I'll give you a number. So look at the watch time. I'm actually going to look at average view percentage viewed as well. All right. So that way it gives you a percentage, and you can also see the average, just like the raw time of it. I actually look at both because I think it's important just to see overall. And then I'm also going to sort here. Go to filter on the left. You can go to content type, and then we're just going to look at our videos because shorts are a whole different ball game. So we're just looking at videos, and keep in mind, guys, like pretty much all of these videos have been also podcast episodes. So these are pretty much all podcast episodes for me. If you have videos that are not podcast related or not related to your video podcast, then you're going to want to look at just the audio or just the video section, right? Or just the podcast episodes that you're releasing. So we can go through here. We can look at percentage viewed, and it's going to vary. It skews heavily depending on the amount of time each video is. But you've got 41%, 30%, 20%, 10%, a whole bunch of different ones. But this is a good barometer to tell me, what is the average. And then if you look at it here, if I hit total, this will tell me, hey, my average view duration is 41%. So I'm in that 30 or 50% range, which is okay. And the average view duration based across all of my videos that I've done so far. So really good stuff. It's hard to get this kind of data inside of like a podcast, hosting provider like a Libsyn or a Captivate or other ones. So I like to look at YouTube because it gives me way more granular data. All right. So those are those two main key metrics that you're going to want to look at, as well as consumption rate, which is the same thing inside of Apple. And my goal or my thought is to measure that once a week. Look at what a video is done after 7 days and after 30 days. And then for me, we'll have meetings with my team pretty much every other week to just look at that data and see what's working and what's not, and talk about the content schedule. All right. So moving into the next one here, if my video is going to help me. Okay. So bottom line, don't compete with market leaders and focus on what you can control when it comes to content, and use these tips here we talked about to really level up your stuff little by little. All right. That's content, thumbnails, titles, and timing, guys. All right. So that's it. On to thing number 3. I'm going to cut this off. I will see you on the next video.